Eli Decker leaned on his wooden cane, limping across the yard. Then he heard the distant sound of Apache hoofbeats. A tall warrior rode up to the front gate of the ranch, dragging behind him the red tribal feathers of his people. Without a greeting, he tossed a barely living body to the ground, a large Apache woman, muscular and powerful. But her legs were twisted completely to either side, bruised as if she had just been through hell. Her eyes cracked open, showing no fear, only the hollow look of someone who had been abandoned one too many times. The warrior jerked his chin and said bluntly, "She is no longer useful. I leave her with you." Then he turned his horse and rode off, kicking up a thick cloud of dust, leaving behind a silence heavier than the wind. Eli looked at the large woman lying on his porch. He had no idea who she was, no clue what had just happened. But he saw something in her eyes that he recognized: loneliness, the kind he had carried for years. He knelt beside her and asked in a low but steady voice, "Do you want to stay here?" The woman let out a deep breath, then gave a faint nod. Eli slid both arms under her back. She was heavy, like a true warrior, and carried her inside. It was just a small moment, the very first one, but it was enough to change both of their lives forever. Eli carried the Apache woman into his modest wooden cabin, each step heavy with the solid weight of a warrior's body. He laid her down on the only bed, then gently pulled an old blanket over her broken legs, which were trembling slightly from the pain. She bit her lip, holding back a groan, a natural pride that Eli recognized right away. He did not ask what had happened to her, or why she had been left behind. He simply glanced at the awkward angle of her legs, then quietly grabbed a knife and began sawing a few planks of wood outside to make splints. Her eyes followed every move he made, not with trust, but without the strength to resist. That first evening, Eli made a bowl of corn porridge, scooped it out, and placed it next to the bed. She hesitated. You are giving me food?" Eli nodded. "If you are hungry, eat. No pity, no coaxing. Just a simple statement." The next morning, Eli got to work. He sawed more planks, building a long wooden ramp that led from the doorway out into the yard, so someone with broken legs could move around using a chair. He gave no explanation, and did not ask what she needed. He simply did it, because he knew what it felt like to have freedom taken away. The woman watched him for a long while before she finally rasped, "Why are you keeping me here? I am nothing but a burden." Eli wiped the sweat from his brow, answering without looking at her, "You wanted to stay." Her voice rose, tinged with bitterness. "So what then? You plan to use me? Warm your bed with me?" Eli stopped, looked up, his eyes calm and steady like the desert. "No. I do not expect anything from you." For the first time, she fell silent, unsure how to respond. As the evening sun sank low, she pulled herself up with her arms as strong as a grizzly bear's. She wanted to feed herself. She wanted to pull the blanket up on her own. She needed to prove she was still a warrior, even if her legs had betrayed her. Eli stood at the door, fixing a loose hinge, pretending not to watch her, but he noticed every small movement. After a long pause, she called out softly, "Why do you not look at me like I am broken?" Eli replied as he hammered the nail in place, "Because you are not." She lowered her face, thick lashes hiding her tear-filled eyes. Kindness without pity, that was something no one in her tribe had ever given her. And right there, in that small wooden house, she felt something even her healed legs might never help her find. A place where she did not have to be ashamed of her weakness. The days that followed passed in a quiet rhythm. Not much was said, but every action carried the weight of things that had never been spoken aloud. The Apache woman, with a body that looked like it had been carved from solid oak, began to adjust to life in the small house. Though her legs, still bound in splints, throbbed with pain, her strong arms remained agile. She asked Eli for a small knife, then sat and peeled corn, braided cords, stitched torn items with clumsy but determined hands. Eli let her be. He did not stop her, and he did not help, unless she looked at him and gave a small nod. He understood the need to hold on to the last scraps of dignity, especially when your own body had betrayed everything you once took pride in. One afternoon, while Eli was carving a new chair to better fit her large frame, her voice rose behind him. "You treat me like I am still a normal person." Eli turned, his gaze calm. "You are a normal person." She gave a short, dry laugh, her broad shoulders trembling slightly. No one in my tribe believes that. A warrior with broken legs is just something extra to throw away. Eli replied, I was something extra too, after the war. Then he tapped his wooden cane. Just because one part is broken does not mean the rest is useless. She stared at him, her eyes softening. It was the first time anyone had ever spoken to her that way. That day, she began pulling herself outside using her arms, trying to go up and down the ramp Eli had just finished. Sweat dripped from her like rain, but she never cried out in pain. When she fell, Eli moved to help, but she raised a hand to stop him. I can do it. He froze, not taking another step. Eventually, she pulled herself back onto the low chair by the door. Her breath was heavy, but her eyes burned with fire. You always let me do things on my own, she said. Eli gave a slight nod. Silence filled the air, not the heavy, awkward kind, but the quiet of two people who understood each other without needing to explain. That evening, as the fire flickered in the stove, she asked the question Eli had known would come sooner or later. Are you doing all this because you pity me? Eli set his spoon down and looked her straight in the eyes. No. You are not broken. You are just tired. Like me. Those simple words hit the softest part of her heart, a place she thought had died long ago. She turned her face away. But Eli still saw the huge shoulders tremble. Time. Inside that small house, two shattered souls had begun to find each other. The desert wind that day was unusually fierce, whipping the dust into tiny spirals around the wooden house. Eli was splitting firewood when he heard the pounding of hooves coming fast from the foot of the hill, the unmistakable sound of Apache warriors. Inside the house, the woman immediately straightened up. Even injured, her warrior instinct was sharp as a blade. Eli caught that look in her eyes and understood they had come for her. 3 warriors appeared, riding with the posture of men who believed strength belonged to them. The one in front was the same man who had brought her here, the cold stare in his eyes as sharp as mountain stone. He threw a hard glance at Eli. You have kept one of ours for too long. Eli said nothing. He stepped slightly in front of the door, like a man who would not move aside. Behind him, the woman pushed the door open with her massive hands. Even seated in her chair, her presence was so commanding that the 3 warriors hesitated. She spoke, her voice raspy but loud as thunder. I am not going back. You have no right to drag me away. The lead warrior narrowed his eyes. You are a warrior of the tribe. You must return to serve. If your legs heal, you may still be of some use. She gave a cold smile, the kind of smile worn by someone who had already died once and had nothing left to lose. My worth was never yours to measure. Another warrior growled. What is this white man hiding? You plan to stay here? Become his slave? She braced both hands on the arms of the chair and pushed herself taller, her broad shoulders flexing with tension. I stay because I choose to, not because of any of you. Eli remained still. This was not his battle. It was hers, and he knew that stepping in now would only take away the voice she was fighting to reclaim. The first warrior gripped his reins tightly. A woman with broken legs has no voice in the tribe. Then I am the exception, she answered, her voice calm but forged of steel. Go back and tell your chief. I am no longer their burden, and I am no longer afraid of them. The 3 warriors looked at one another. They could not use force, not with Eli standing in the way, and not with the way she was looking at them, like a hyena ready to bite, even with her last breath. Finally, they turned their horses and rode off through the swirling dust. No threats, no parting words, but that silence weighed heavier than any sword. Eli watched them go, then stepped back inside. She looked up, the golden eyes of her Apache blood gleaming with both relief and pride. They cannot take me away anymore. Eli gave a quiet nod. Because you no longer let them decide for you. And in the small room, she smiled for the first time as if she had just reclaimed her name. Thank you for being here with me. Let us know where in the world you are listening from. And if this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to the channel to support my work. I only wish for you to be safe and happy wherever in the world you are hearing this story. After the confrontation with the Apache warriors, something shifted in the air inside the wooden cabin. The large woman who had once been silent, guarded, always keeping her distance, now began to look at Eli with different eyes. No more suspicion, no more caution, but something softer, something she had never shown before. The long winter nights were drawing near. Eli started lighting the fire earlier, while she pulled her chair closer to the warmth, leaning into the heat she had never allowed herself to need. One evening, while Eli was sharpening his knife, she spoke. Yesterday, when they came, were you afraid? Eli set the blade down calmly. Yes. She looked at him for a long time. But you never left the door, Eli replied. I knew you wanted them to hear your voice. I stood there so they could not drag you away. She lowered her head. Her broad shoulders trembled, like a mountain soaking in the rain. In her tribe, no one had ever stood beside her. No one had ever treated her voice like it mattered. And yet Eli, a man with a limp and nothing to his name but a steady heart, had done what an entire tribe had failed to do. He respected her. That night, as the wind howled outside the window, she whispered, Eli, I do not want to just stay here. He looked up, the firelight reflecting in her eyes, making them glow warmer, more golden. Then what do you want? She drew a deep, hesitant breath, like a warrior preparing for one final charge. I long for the warmth of a man like you. I want to share a life with you. She placed her large hand over Eli's and gently squeezed. Touch me. It was not a plea. It was not seduction. It was the voice of a woman who had finally dared to admit her truest desire. Eli did not rush. He did not lunge forward. He simply raised his hand and placed it on her cheek, a light touch, full of the kind of respect she had never once received from any man. Only if you truly want this. I do, she answered, with the steady force of an arrow from her own tribe. In that moment, two souls once cast aside, once seen as broken, reached into the deepest parts of each other. There was no pity. There was no pressure. There were only two human beings, finding one another in the vast desert. The morning after they had admitted their feelings, the first sunlight of winter spilled through the window, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. The Apache woman opened her eyes before Eli, and for the first time in many years, she did not wake up to sadness or fear. She felt only peace. Eli was boiling water in the kitchen, his figure slightly tilted from the limp in his leg, but his movements were steady and calm, just like every day. When he heard her stir, he turned around, his eyes gentle, but never possessive. Did you sleep well? She nodded, the sun-kissed skin on her cheeks tinged with a faint blush. Yes. For the first time in years. Her broken legs were still wrapped and bandaged, but they felt different now. Not just less painful, but as if they had been given a reason to heal. Eli had made her a new pair of crutches, longer and sturdier. When he brought them out, she looked at them for a long time before whispering, You never saw me as a burden. You are not a burden, Eli said firmly. You never were. She tried standing with the crutches, every muscle in her shoulders, back, and hips tensed like a bowstring. Sweat gathered on her forehead, but she stood on her own for the first time since her legs had broken. Eli did not touch her. He only stood close enough to catch her if she fell. She knew that, and that was what made her feel safer than any hand that had ever laid itself on her. I did it, she said, breathing hard, eyes blazing like fire. I knew you would, Eli replied, with a smile. In the days that followed, she practiced walking on crutches around the yard. Her steps were strong, deliberate, as if every ounce of confidence was beginning to grow back under her skin. When the desert wind blew through her long black hair, she looked more like a warrior than ever before. One evening, as they sat by the fire, she placed a hand over her chest, right where her heart felt like it might burst. Eli, she said softly, I thought I was shattered. But Eli laid his hand over hers, so gently it barely seemed like a touch. You are not broken, he said. She laughed, a full, radiant laugh he had never heard from her before. I never was. I just needed a place where someone could truly see me. Eli gently squeezed her hand, a quiet promise without a single word. Outside, the desert was still wild, still vast, still unforgiving. But inside that small house, two souls had found the way back to themselves and to each other. Time passed, and the Arizona desert began to shift into the pale gold of autumn. The wind no longer burned. It had grown gentler, softer, as if the whole land had changed its voice into something tender. In that air, the Apache woman felt her body beginning to change in strange, unfamiliar ways. At first, it was the long waves of sleepiness. Then came the dizziness every morning. Eli noticed it before she said anything, though he did not speak. He simply handed her a cup of herbal tea and looked at her with quiet concern. One morning, as she was practicing a few short steps on her crutches, she suddenly stopped, placing a hand over her stomach. A feeling washed over her, not pain, but something stirring from deep within. Eli quickly stepped toward her. "What is it?" She looked up, her amber eyes filled with confusion, even a hint of fear. "Eli, I am not sure." He gently supported her elbow and helped her sit down on the bench outside the porch. Her breath was unsteady, not from panic, but from something larger, rising inside her. After a moment, she whispered, "I think I might be carrying a child." Eli froze. The wind moved through the yard, carrying the scent of dry earth and brittle leaves. Just a few seconds, but enough to gather every wound, every war, every lonely year they had both endured, and turn it into one single thing. A happiness so pure, it burned in his chest. He knelt in front of her, taking her strong, powerful hand between his rough, weathered ones. "Are you sure?" She nodded, eyes glistening with emotion she could not hide. A warrior knows when her body changes. And this time, it is not pain. Eli leaned forward and pressed a slow, gentle kiss to her forehead. "You are not broken. You never were." Her shoulders trembled, not from sadness, but because she was starting to understand that she was being loved in a way she had never known before. A love with no demands, no chains, only support. She looked out over the ranch, toward the pieces of wood Eli had put up the season before, still standing firm in the wind. Eli, a child born from an Apache warrior, and a man with a limp. She laughed softly, her voice full of warmth. "Maybe he or she will be fierce." Eli shrugged, his eyes filled with a pride he had never allowed himself to feel. "They will have their mother's heart." She laughed a wide, beautiful smile, radiant like the first winter sun, and in that peaceful morning, beneath the vast desert sky, two people, once abandoned by the world, realized they were about to have a family, something neither of them had dared to dream of before finding each other. Winter passed as gently as a breath, and spring crept into the Arizona desert, with rare touches of green along the hills. In that time, the Apache woman had changed in ways neither Eli nor even she herself could have imagined. Her broken legs slowly healed. Each day, she walked a little farther. At first, just a few quiet, cautious steps, then longer, stronger strides. The crutches Eli had made for her became just something to lean on when needed. Now, she could walk around the ranch yard, her hand grazing the new fence, her eyes watching over the small herd of cattle they were raising together. One morning, as she stepped outside as usual, she noticed something new. At the tallest wooden post, Eli had hung a brand new sign. The letters had been carved by knife, rough but clear. "Decker Ranch." The wind passed through the sign, making those three words clack softly like a greeting from a brand new future. She stood still for a long time. "Eli, when did you make this?" He leaned on his cane and gave a quiet smile. "While you were sleeping. I wanted you to be the first to see it this morning." She walked up to the sign and placed her strong hand on the deep cuts in the wood. Each line of the carving felt like a piece of belief of something just beginning. She turned to him, her amber, brown eyes full of emotion she no longer tried to hide. "I do not feel abandoned anymore. Here, I have a home." Eli stepped beside her, slowly, his shoulder brushing hers, a simple gesture that held the weight of a promise. "We have both been abandoned," he said, "but not because we were broken, only because we had not yet found the right person." She looked at him for a long time, her fierce warrior face softening like desert soil after rain. "And now, have you found that person?" Eli nodded without hesitation. "Yes, it is you." The wind caught the Decker Ranch sign again, making it clatter as if to seal the truth of his words. She stepped closer and placed her hand over Eli's chest, right where his heart beat steady and calm. "Then I will stay too. Not because I need protection, but because I love you." Eli took her hand and pressed it gently to his cheek. "And I love you. More than anything." beneath the wide Arizona sky, in the heart of a wild and endless desert. Two souls once shattered had finally found a place to anchor. No longer alone, no longer a burden, just a home, a family, and a future they had built with their own hands. My dear friends, love is not magic, but it holds the power to do what even time and pain cannot. It does not fix people with promises, it heals through quiet presence, day after day. Love lifts the broken to their feet. It gives fearful hearts the courage to open again. Love does not ask what we have lost. It gently reminds us what we still have left to give. And when two once broken souls recognize each other, love turns those pieces into a home that lasts forever. It has been a joy to share this journey with you. I truly hope that wherever you are safe and you are happy. I love you, all of you who listen to Wild West storytelling. Tell me how this story made you feel. Leave a comment below. Type 1 if you enjoyed this story. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel to catch more thrilling